Hello and welcome everyone. This is Rashmi from Designhill. I hope you guys are doing great and staying safe with your families. Thank you so much for joining us for this webinar with Frank, wherein we are going to discuss about how to negotiate and price your work as a freelancer. I'm sure this is going to be a very important and insightful discussion for all of us. So today's event is brought to you by Designhill, which is the world's leading creative marketplace that caters to the creative needs of individuals and businesses alike to source high quality designs from professional designers around the world. Moving ahead, let me quickly introduce our speaker for the day. We have Frank, who is a brand identity designer, who is giving back to the creatives and guiding them in terms of giving the design tips and resources. He started GDay Frank in 2018, and you can find him on Instagram at GDay Frank and GDay Design Life. Frank, would you like to say a quick hi to the audience? You are on mute. Let me unmute you. You'll have to unmute yourself.
That would help. G'day everybody, how are we doing? Thanks so much for being here. I'm so excited to be here. I've got a really good deck to show you, so I'll let you do some more introductions and then we'll get into it.
All right, so guys, before we start, let's quickly look at what Designhill is all about, and then we'll begin with the session.
Looking to get your boss to remember your name? Head to the world's #1 creative marketplace, Designhill.
When my company promoted me to head up our latest real estate development project, I was excited, then anxious, then petrified. How was I going to hire the team, get the designs completed, and design beautiful presentation materials on our lean budget while impressing my bosses, some of whom are still learning my name?
Good job, Mitch.
My name's Lawrence. That's why I went to Designhill and got the design help I needed that fit within my company's brand guidelines. The process was simple. Designhill's design contest ensured I'd get a ton of results I'd love. Start by picking a number of designs that inspire you. This one's good, and that one. This one speaks to me. Then share some information about the project. Lastly, pick a package that fits your budget. Do you just want a logo, or do you want it all? Then, boom. I got more than 60 custom design options to choose from, as well as all the other graphic design assets I wanted. And it's all backed by Designhill's 100% money-back guarantee. If I don't find a design I like, I get my money back. You can't lose. Now I have what I need to make a splash at my meetings, with everything from business cards, pamphlets, posters, and more. It's real.
Let the world know it's real and build your brand with Designhill.
All right, everyone, that was a bit about Designhill, and now we are all set to start the session. A quick note here, we will take up questions during the session as well. So you would see a chat, a question section on your screen. So feel free to put all your questions in the questions tab, and do not put them in the chat because it will get misplaced within the chat. So put them in the question section. We will take up question after every 15 minutes of the session to keep this session interactive. So let's get started, Frank. Over to you. Unmute yourself, please.
There we go. Okay. Good everybody. All right, I'm going to figure this out at some stage. I need to put up a quick little call to action for all to be able to find me. Un momento, por favor. And there's my little call to action. Here's how you can find me on Instagram here. And while you do that, I need to be able to share my screen in just a second. So I'll leave that up for there for 2 seconds. Otherwise, you'll be able to find the next couple of slides. 3, 2, 1. All right, that's going away. And I'm going to share my screen. Okay, here we go. G'day, everybody. I am Frank. That's me, that peanut head right there. These are my two businesses accounts that you can find me on Instagram at G'day Design Life and at G'day Frank. G'day Frank is my brand identity design business. I'm a brand identity designer. I work with clients from around the world, especially in Australia, where I'm from, in Sydney, Australia. I also give back to my fellow creatives. I'm hoping that's you guys who are looking to start their own design business like I have. I've only been in business now for just over 2 years, and it's going so far so good. I'm also a father of one little boy and another on the way in 2 weeks. I'm having a little girl, so That should be interesting. And I'm a husband of 4 years now as well. So doing this plus family life, it's a conundrum, but here I am today to talk to you guys about how to negotiate and price your work and services as a creative freelancer. But I want to change the script here a little bit and say that you are a business owner. You're a freelancer if you are working for an agency on a short-term contract. If you're working with clients on your own business to business kind of work, you are a business owner. So what we're going to cover today is 5 different things. The first is what you need to charge as a designer, how to charge more than $100 for your services, understanding who can afford your services, how to present your price with confidence, and how to negotiate any pushback you have over your price. I should have gone through those like that. Anyway, first up, 3 ways to price your services. Now, I'm hoping that if you've started this business of yours, that you're looking to price your work in a way that makes sense. A lot of you might charge to start with time, or then you might upgrade to project, and then maybe you've heard about value-based pricing. From these 3 different types of pricing, we want to look at each of them. Personally, I don't think we should be looking at time as a way to charge for our design services. Leave time for day rate freelance work, after hours kind of work when you're off the clock. It's past 5, 6 p.m. and it's into your own personal time of the day. It's outside of work hours, or use it for in-person consulting. The reason why I say not to use time is it can create some animosity between you and your client, where they might become a designer for some reason and scrutinize the amount of hours that you spent on that work when it comes in over what they were hoping to spend. So if you can, avoid time-based pricing like the plague. The next one down the bottom there is value-based pricing. You might have heard a guy named Blair Enns. He wrote this book. I don't know if you can see it in a little thumbnail there, but it's called Pricing Creativity. It's a very big book, but value-based pricing, I would suggest that you use this not when you're starting out. Once you get way more confident and you're working with bigger clients where the risk of your solution needs to be a respectable portion of the value returned. What I mean by this is if you were approached by McDonald's or Coca-Cola and they asked you to redesign their logo and your price is $500, $1,000, $10,000, it's not in direct correlation with the risk it would take for them to rebrand. It would be up there of $1 million, $2 million to do that because their brand is worth billions. So you'd just be laughed out of the room effectively if you charge your normal rate. So value-based pricing there is a little bit of a higher game to play and not something I'd suggest when starting out here. So what you should be pricing your services at is project-based pricing. So each project, you have a fee for that project. Now, I'm guessing a lot of you will be asking, how do I charge the rate I want to charge my clients? No one wants to charge, no one wants to pay my rate, all this kind of thing. I hear this on the daily in Facebook groups, on Instagram, in sessions like this. It's a big question, but I think you need to flip the question to be, what do I need to charge to create a viable business? But also maintain your livelihood, because at the end of the day, your business is there to sustain your livelihood, especially as a solopreneur. So the first step is, if you want to write this down, list down all your expenses per month. This looks like your rent, your phone bill, your internet, your groceries for the month, any insurance you have to pay, food for your pet, your Netflix subscription, car loan, dining out, entertainment with friends, and even savings that you put aside each month. The second step from that is to know how much you're going to be spending each month. And that's $2,000 a month, just as an example here. We're going to run with this. We're going to say it's US dollars throughout this presentation here as well, to give you a general idea of what we're kind of talking about here. It might be more, it might be less, whatever the number is for you, keep that in mind. The second step here is to list down all the expenses your business would incur for that month. Things like insurance for your business, Adobe Creative Cloud for Photoshop and Illustrator if you're a designer, a Gmail account, paying your accountant to help you out with your finances, having your website domain and hosting fees, any books, Pantone books, your computer, your camera, web camera, microphone, whatever it might be that your business incurs, writing down those expenses, which could be something like $200 a month. So step 3, in addition to this, is to add 40% to that total number to account for things like taxes and retirement. What this looks like in this scenario is adding 40% to the $2,000 and the $200 a month, which equates to $3,080 per month. 40% though in this case is a worst case scenario figure. Your taxes might be lower than this, your expenses might be lower than this, all these different factors, but this gives you a broad range so that if you were to get to the end of a year and you've got a big chunk of money there that you haven't spent, it doesn't need to go anywhere. You've got then runway for you to be able to use in the event that you have work that dries up. So you're not getting in as much projects, and you can rely on that money that you have saved, kind of like a forced savings in a way for your business. So where your revenue goes when you look at it in a little pretty pie chart like this is that 50% of every invoice that you receive should be going to your living expenses. The other half you shouldn't touch, or you touch in a business capacity. So for taxes, for your business expenses, and for retirement. But retirement might not need to look at 10%, or your business expenses might not need to be that much. You could even add shares in there if you wanted to invest your money. All these different things that you do, but look at your expenses of your living costs as half of every invoice you receive. So now that you know you need to make at least $3,080 in this scenario, whatever the figure comes to for you, you need to have this to succeed as a business. So now you need to ask yourself, how many projects can I realistically take on per month? How many jobs can you do per month without absolutely shattering your life? Is it one job a month? That means each job needs to be $3,080 for you to be a successful and viable business. Is it 5 jobs, which equates to then $616 per job? Or can you do 20 jobs in a month, which makes it down to $154 a job? So this is how you need to charge at minimum for your services, by making a non-negotiable. You're not haggling with your client. You're telling the client what that price needs to be for you to be able to work with them on that project, because that's how many projects you can take on per month. Which means from here you can do less projects, but for the same amount of money. So if you're doing 20 projects now, but you don't want to do 20 and you only want to do 10, you can go from 154 to 616, I think it was, per job, and be doing less or half or quarter the work, whatever it is. The other aspect of it is that you could add a profit margin percentage on top to increase your rate. So you could add 10%, 20%, 30%, 40%, 200%, whatever it is, to increase your rate over time, especially as your experience develops and those that you work with and the solutions that you provide gain some traction and credibility of what you do. But what about your hourly rate? I don't want to forget this, because it is valuable for you as a design business owner to know. To figure it out, take that monthly figure and multiply it by 12. And the 12 is 12 months. So the 3,080 by 12 months equals a yearly revenue of $36,960. It might be higher or lower depending on your situation, obviously. We want to take that number then and divide it by your yearly revenue by 1,920. This equates to the hours in a 48-week year. This allows you for 4 weeks of sick or holiday leave time per year. This is based on 8 hours per day, 5 days a week. So it gives you an hourly rate of 19.25 an hour. I'm just going to take a quick sip of water. So what this hourly rate helps you do is track your hours to know if the project remains profitable. So you can compare your hourly rate of how many hours you've spent on that project, times it by the hourly rate that you have internally, and see if you're hitting above or below that mark of what you've quoted for that job. If it's higher, then you need to get quicker. If it's lower, then you can remain profitable, and you could possibly charge more if you wanted to. Doesn't really matter, but it makes sure that you know if you are profitable on those jobs or not, and also helps you quote better in the future. What you can also use it for is to produce your freelancer day rate. I said at the start of this, being a freelancer is working with agencies, maybe in-house or remotely. So a full day rate at 8 hours by 1925 is 154 as your day rate. The other thing is to be able to use this hourly rate to charge overtime. So as I said at the start of this, if you want to charge after hours, outside of business hours work that the client urgently needs you, you could even put on 100%, tax on top of that just for the inconvenience. It's totally up to you. Or you could do it for the consulting time as well. So I want to leave here at this little point here to do a first Q&A, and I'm just going to have a look at some of the questions here and I can answer some. Book recommendations. All right, so that one, book recommendations for price. Can we get me onto full screen? Is that, oh, there we go. I can do that. There we go. If you want to learn value-based pricing and how to price creativity, is this one. That's the one I mentioned at the start, which is Blair Enns. It's quite an expensive book, I got to say. You can get it as an ebook for $100 US, whereas the hard copy book was probably double or triple that. The other book that's really good for pricing is Michael Jander's book, The Psychology of Graphic Design Pricing. You can get this on Amazon. I think it's probably $30 US, and that can get shipped to you, I guess, anywhere in the world at the moment. They're the two ones I recommend for pricing as a freelancer. Okay, the next question here from Adriana is, should I offer different levels of services at different price points? Yes, you can. Depending on the scope of work that you have, depending on what type of service you offer. Let's say you're a web designer and you might have different tiers for packages that you do. A really simple one might be a template-based website that you've already created, and it just requires you to put in the logo, the colors, the photos, and the type, and you're done. It might only be one landing page, or it might be a couple of pages. Then you could tier it to the next tier, which you have everything's custom. And then you could have even further where you build in something like an e-commerce website and tier it that way based on the scope of services.
Okay, Frank, I have a question
please.
here. So we talked about the value-based pricing, and we talked about the hourly rate pricing. I think you have covered a lot of answers to a lot of questions, which we had in the registration form. However, those who are beginners, those who are just starting new in the industry, should they follow the same strategy, and what else they can do to sort of understand the value of
Okay,
their
I'm going
work?
to cover that part soon, but I really, as I said at the start, stress not to worry about value-based pricing to begin with. I've never used it. It never works for a small business because they don't see the value and they don't have brand recognition and brand value yet, especially if you're starting out with a new business. It doesn't quite work. So stick with project-based, time-based pricing, doing hourly rates. Look, you can do it to start with, but you're really going to find that what's going to happen over time, especially as you want to up your rate and you gain more experience and you work quicker, you're not going to get as many, hours in to get that rate, and you're going to start increasing it. And it's going to hit a ceiling where you're going to be up to like an hourly rate that could be equivalent to what a doctor or a lawyer charges. And realistically, no client is paying that when they see it on paper as an hourly rate. You are better off getting or you could estimate the hours that you're going to take on a project and then price it that way based on your own internal hourly rate. But to show your client your hourly rate really gets you into trouble. I've heard so many designers get into trouble with this. I've never charged that way unless it's a day rate or it's after hours for inconvenience kind of things, or really quick small jobs. But even still, having the client understand what it is they're going to walk away having to pay, either upfront or at the end, is going to manage that expectation a lot better, rather than them guesstimating and them thinking, oh, it'll probably only take them 5 hours, but it ends up taking you 20. And then they go, I don't want to pay that. I think it should have only taken 5. And they become the designer in the room when they've had no design experience ever before. That's when animosity happens in that relationship. And that's why I really recommend not to. And many others like me recommend not to. It's not just me saying this. These guys in these books that I recommended, they say exactly the same thing. And there's plenty of others like them that say the same thing. Was there any other questions before I move on?
All right, I think let's continue with the presentation, and then we'll take up more questions. Yeah.
Okay, perfect. Alrighty, the next part of the webinar here is, how do we charge more than $100 for your services? I'm guessing that depending on where you are in the world, your service amount or your rate is possibly quite low. If you are in parts of the subcontinent and you're not in a Western country and you're using services like Fiverr or 99 Designs and you're charging at a rate like this, that's okay. Starting out, if that works for you, that is okay. But I'm guessing you all want to charge more. So how do we do that? To coin a phrase, just do it. I'm only joking. That's Nike's phrase, but realistically, it is to just do it. So it's all well and good as well, and you're probably thinking, it's all well and good, Frank. But how do you actually do it? So this is how to do it. You price what you need to charge as a non-negotiable, which is something I said at the start in that first section, is you have the rate that you need to charge. That becomes your rate. That's all you need to say to a client. This is my rate. And they ask you why, and you say, that's my rate. That's how much I need to charge for these services. If you walk into a store, let's say it's a Nike store, and there's a pair of Nike sneakers on the shelf. You ask the clerk and say, how much is that pair of shoes? I really like them. They say $200. And you say, okay, wow, that's quite expensive. You don't turn around and say, why is it $200? What do I get for $200? That's what's on the shelf. That's what you're buying there. And understandably, a client doesn't see the end result, but they should be able to see end results of work that you've already done before. So that way they should be able to compare the price. If they don't think it's worth it, then that's not your client, but make it a non-negotiable. The next step is get off Fiverr and 99 Designs if you can. If you are starting to get some clients and you're starting to get some traction, you have some proof of concept that you can actually solve your clients' problems, get off those services, because a client that is looking on those sites aren't expecting to get a expensive service. They're looking for a cheap alternative or an affordable alternative that meets their budget at that lower range. It's the fact of the matter. I've never put my services on these websites personally, and for me, I charge anywhere between $5,000 to $10,000 for my services as a brand identity designer. So I'm definitely not getting those kind of clients on Fiverr. The next aspect is to make your business look more professional. So your client can come across your website or your social media presence, wherever they find you or come across you, or you get in front of their face, they can see you, and then they can understand that you're putting on a professional perception here, that you can solve their problem and do it well, and you are trusted. And basically, they can see that they can trust you, are worth your service. But then you got to ask, how do you instill trust in somebody that you've never even met? And they've never met you. They have no idea who you are apart from your little Instagram bio or the bio you put on your website. How do you do it? There's a lot of different things here, but the first one, if you are non-English speaking and you want to work with Western clients, I've got to tell you right now, and this is such a hard fact of life in the Western world, is that you need to be able to speak and write English well enough to be able to communicate effectively. If you want to compete with someone like myself in Australia and you want to work with Australian clients, you got to get to my level. You got to be able to communicate in my language, unfortunately. But it's not to say that if I was to work with someone in India that I can't do the same. If they can speak English well and I can speak it just as well, I hope, it makes the interaction so much more fluid, and you can understand each other very easily and be able to articulate yourself in that manner, so that if you need to talk about your services and the work that you've made, your client understands where you're coming from and you understand nuances about how to create a dialogue between the two. But look, if you just want to work with those in your own country, that's totally fine. That shouldn't be an issue. But still, communication in its essence is to be able to articulate yourself correctly in a way that someone else at the other end of the phone or the email or in a Zoom call like this is able to understand you. Second is professionalism. I've touched on this before, but it's looking at things like your business card. If you hand these out in person, you might not, but if you do, having a business card helps. A basic and consistent visual identity across all your touch points. If you're a logo designer, you don't need to flex and make the most amazing logo ever. My logo for my business is a G and an F, which is just a font in a circle. That is it. It doesn't need to say what it is you do. It doesn't need to say that you are the best designer out there. It needs to be simple and effective and consistent. The same goes for your email address, not having an @gmail.com or an @hotmail or any free service. Having something that's custom for you presents yourself much more professionally. And it's the same with your email signature. There is a link here I'm going to just put in the chat for you guys to check out. It's from a site called HubSpot. Hopefully you guys can click on that link. It allows you to create your email signature for free and copy and paste it into Gmail or Microsoft Outlook, whatever it is, for free. You can put your logo in there. You can put your social links. That's how I do it myself. Same as well goes for your website. Have a clean and professional website. It could only be one page. Doesn't really matter. As long as it shows your face, where you are, your name, your services, and what it is you can do as a result for your clients, especially the work that you've done. That's what a website needs to be, and some clear call to action to get in contact with you or to book a meeting with you with a Calendly link maybe, or an email, form or something like that. And then obviously having a well-presented appearance. Looking shabby like a typical kind of designer isn't probably going to cut it, especially if you're doing video communication or you're meeting someone in person. That should go without saying though, I hope. The next one here is to have an online presence. You have the opportunity now to have an online presence like never before. You have all these social media outlets to share who it is you are, what it is you do, how you do it, why you do it, your personality, all these kind of things that creates, basically content that speaks to your ideal client. There's no point speaking to other designers and hoping for work, teaching other designers how to design. I don't find that something that's going to be effective for a client to take something away from. They're not going to go away and create their own logo. You don't want them to do that. You want them to employ you to help them create their logo. So create content for them in mind. That's exactly what I do for G'day Design. Sorry, for G'day Frank. G'day Design Life is a different story. That's for you guys. Having a consistent visual identity and language as well, so it is authentic to you, not just some generic way that you communicate. Show your face. Doesn't matter. The person at the other end of the video or their phone or whatever it is wants to know who they're engaging with. Don't hide behind your logo, even if you're trying to put yourself up as a bigger than you are entity. So if you're saying you're an agency or a company, but it's just you at the moment, still share your face as the founder or the CEO or whatever title you want to give yourself, and be a face for your brand, like Steve Jobs was for Apple or the Colonel for KFC. Those kind of things will really help create a connection point with that person so that they know who they are dealing with and they can trust you. Also share where you're from. There's no point hiding where you're from, especially if you are in India. If you're in Mumbai, you have a thick accent and you call me an Australian, I know probably where you're from. I can take a quick guess. So there's no point hiding away from it. Be upfront and honest with people. That's what they are looking for from an engagement, especially if you want to charge a higher price. But also share your why, your how, what you do for your clients to understand a bit more about yourself. The next is to show your best work, recent and relevant to your target client. Solutions that have been solved typically for clients that have very similar kind of pain points. So if you are a website designer and they always have clients that come to you always have SEO problems, show work that solves SEO problems. Create case studies that show the project process, so that way it gives an insight of how you work, and then that way it can set expectations of what it is they're buying into, and also obviously showing outcomes and things like testimonials, which I'll touch on I think next. Showing your work on multiple channels, so not just your website, but showing it on Behance, Dribbble, Pinterest, LinkedIn, Instagram. If you have the opportunity to do so, you may as well do it. I am terrible at this. I don't have it across all of these. I have it on my website. I have it on my LinkedIn and Instagram. I need to create some case studies myself. So I am still in a learning process here, just like you guys are. Next is to have a clear project process. So if it's a meeting and discovery session up front, to understand the client's needs rather than just taking what they think they need for gospel or as a brief and running with it, questioning it, asking why they need to do this, how they want it to look, what they want to achieve. Then having a project proposal that outlines what they're looking to do and what you can deliver. Having a professional looking contract that has your logo or your details on it, the same with your invoice. And then understanding if the project is a collaborative process. So is the client involved at any point? Or do you focus on a solution/brief-based process? And have as many interactions with your client as much as possible. So that drives that personal communication rather than emailing or WhatsApping them. Having some face-to-face or verbal dialogue gets the intonation of knowing what that person is saying. So what tone of voice they have. So you're not getting lost in translation here. The next one is testimonials. Having testimonials that reference a specific project especially can help. Reviews on a Google My Business page, if you set that up, you can get those 5-star ratings with a nice little review there too. You can put it on your website. It's totally up to you which way you want to do it. You could ask past clients that are willing to be referees. So a new client would maybe want to talk to an existing client to get a sense of how the interaction was, how the process went, if they were happy or not. And you can even draft up a testimonial for your clients to approve if they are short on time. The next one is asking for referrals. You know, a warm client is better than a cold client, especially when the good word comes from someone that they trust, not from you saying, trust me, trust me. So you can ask existing clients to refer you onto someone that they might know in their network, or you could ask people in your own network, maybe LinkedIn or Instagram or friends or family, whoever it is, and ask if they know of anyone. Rather than asking if they need the services, ask that person if they know somebody else. So you're not asking them directly. They might need the service and say, actually, I need that. And then you go, okay, great. You're not directly asking them. You are asking somebody passively through that person. I think the second last one here is personality. So being genuine and authentic, I've mentioned this, but also be friendly and approachable. You know, have a manner about you that is makes you sort of feel like you want to be someone that they want to work with, and tell your story as well with confidence. Having confidence is a big key here, and I'm going to touch on this quite a few times throughout this presentation, but having confidence and also making sure that you're trying to build a relationship with your client and not just seeing them as a number and a dollar sign or as a sale, whatever it is. Treat them with respect and they will hopefully treat you in the same way. And you're not going to be for everybody. So the more desperate you sound for work, the less likely you are going to get it. The last one here is price, obviously. Now, to gain trust in price, if you have a low market price for a high value problem, so if they could walk away out of this solution with $200,000 added revenue and you're charging $100, it indicates a low quality solution on your part. So which is why clients who pay less tend to hold your hand to get to a solution that they can ensure works. So they become your art director and you wonder why the client is so annoying. You need to charge a higher price because it can psychologically influence a client to believe that you are the least risky choice for that high value problem that they need to solve, so that they assume that for your high price that you can deliver. Otherwise, you wouldn't be charging such a high price. Psychologically makes a difference. So the moral is to price higher, just do it, especially if you have to as that non-negotiable. Higher price commands greater trust and respect. And the better you present yourself, the greater the perceived value will be for what you do. There's a reason why I am so consistent on LinkedIn, Instagram, Facebook, my website. It's all consistent. It's all my face. It's all pink. It's all the same tone of voice, same call to actions, all that kind of stuff. It presents much more professionally. And if your price is too high for that lead, they aren't the right client for you. More on that shortly. So let's go to Q&A round 2.
All right, the session is going pretty amazing. I hope you guys are noting down all the points which Frank has shared so far. I'm sure you don't want to miss that. Before we slide into the Q&A session, I would like to give a quick shout out to Designhill for organizing this wonderful session. Let's take a quick 1-minute break and we'll be back.
Clarematics is a full-service video agency based around video production. We created a brand that fit our identity at the time, but as we've evolved as a company, we found that original brand didn't quite fit our aspirations anymore. Finding a partner to rebrand your entire company takes a lot of time and effort. Finding Designhill was an incredible lifeline. Designhill offers a money-back guarantee. If we don't like any of the designs, we get all of our money back. The stuff that we ended up with were well beyond what we had been seeing on other creative services platforms. After creating a simple design brief by answering some questions created by Designhill, we posted, and within a few days, we had over 250 entries. Designhill's platform made it easy to communicate with all of the potential designers. Eventually, we picked a winner. In addition to a logo, our designer also created a letterhead, business cards, and banners for all of our social media platforms. With Designhill's help, we now have a brand that meets our aspirations. We're ready for the future and everything that it's here to bring.
All right, let's slide to the Q&A session. Frank, can you hear me?
Yeah, I can.
Okay. So kindly check the questions tab, please.
Will do. Okay, so I have a few ones here. I'm going to try and get through as many as I can here. Yuki asked, how do you save yourself from endless feedback from your client when you're charging project-based? Do you set a time frame for the project? Yes, set a time frame, so have a scope of when the deadline is. That can help. You can also, in your contracts, add an amount of revisions that client can have during the project process. So limit that and basically set their expectations of what a revision is. That can help. Next question here is, a lot of designers use sites like Envato. Is it recommended? Yeah, definitely. I use Envato mainly for stock images. A lot of the stuff is for my Instagram and LinkedIn content. You can use it for client projects. You just got to be careful where you use it, because some licenses vary based on the content that you use from there. But yeah, it's definitely worth it, especially for things like mock-ups, to show your work in context, especially if you're like a logo designer, to show that logo in like a real world scenario. Things like that really help. How do you set the payment process? 50-50. So 50 at the start, 50 at the end, or 30-30-40. Look, it's totally up to you. I typically do 50 and 50 if it's a smaller kind of job. If it's a really small job, I'll ask for it 100% up front, but you can cadence it out. So if you have a project process that has, say, 4 parts, which mine does, I have discovery, strategy, messaging, and then the design, I'll split them up and take, let's say, 33% for each allotment, or maybe I'll do 15%, 25%, 30%, whatever the last remaining bit is. So it's totally up to you the way you do it. Just make sure you're getting payment up front before you start. And then also at the end, if you're delivering with 50% left, make sure they pay that invoice before you're handing over deliverables. Do you recommend niching down? Yes, and that's going to be covered very soon. So hopefully that answers your question, Adriana. For fresh graduates, don't have any experience in freelance, how can we get our first freelance jobs? Look, that's where sites like Fiverr and 99 Designs, and I think even Designhill, can help you get clients for those first jobs that you need to get some work under your belt, to have that client experience and go from there. That's one of the things that I think I recommend, that even if you can't find any work, make work. There's websites where you can receive fake briefs and create work around that and put that in a portfolio, so that when you do approach clients, they can see what it is you can actually do and you can deliver in that, deliverable, website design, branding, copywriting, whatever it might be. Another question here. I have been a designer freelancer for over the past 3 years, but finding it truly hard to get started on Upwork. Any tips? Again, you're competing on these sites for jobs. Upwork, Fiverr, all these kind of sites, you're competing against other designers. You want to be the only one that the client is thinking about. So you need to get in front of their face. To do that, that's where social media comes in. You can do a Google search and type in, if you know a particular business that you could help potentially, you type in their job title, like CEO, managing director, marketing manager, whatever it might be, of X company, and then up will come hopefully a profile of that person on LinkedIn that you could connect with, engage with their content if they put out content, and a similar kind of thing for Instagram. But it generally depends on if the owner of that Instagram account is the owner operator. If they have a social media team, you're probably going to get roadblocked, but you could reach out and say, I'd like to have a conversation with your founder or CEO or managing director, whoever it is that a possibility, and how could I get in contact with them? Because I think I might be able to help with some services here if they are in need of something like this. So there can be some roadblocks getting in there, but having something like Upwork, you're competing in competitions to get work, and you're pitching work rather than having a brief and then creating something bespoke so the client hasn't seen it yet, obviously, but They are trusting you to get to a solution. Another question here is, can you please explain a bit about the scope and job opportunities for graphic and UX designers in your country? Yeah, there's a heap of opportunity in Australia. There are that many businesses in Australia, UK, US. You just need to look for them. They're out there. They are always out there. There are people that need help, whether they know it or not. It's about getting in front of their faces, and it might only be helping them out to begin with smaller little jobs. I know a mate of mine, he does signage work, but also does branding. He'll walk into a business and say, I'm just wondering, I just saw your sign out there. It looks a little bit odd. The light isn't working. Is that something I could help you with? Or he'll go in and say, oh, do you mind if I leave my business card if ever you need some signage work or some branding work? And say, yeah, sure thing. And said, oh, do you have a business card so I can give you a call in a few months? And they say no, or they give you a really average business card that they're not proud of. You say, hey, can I help you with your business card here? And start with a small entry-level job so that they can start trusting you, and then you can maybe sell your big ticket item, which might be a full brand identity, whatever it might be. So starting small can really help to get your foot in the door. What it might also require, just on that question quickly as well, is that you might need to do some work with agencies too. So get in the door of bigger agencies that might need overflow work done by freelancers. They won't have too much work on their plate. You can knock on their door and say, hey, if ever you need some work done, I'd love to work with you. I have the ability to create UX wireframes, whatever it is that you do, and start out that way. And you might build a network in that respect. How to deal with clients that think they are on freelancer platforms to hire cheap Asian services. It's a reality. Unfortunately, you can't get away from it. Clients are going to these particular websites looking for an affordable option that I said at the start of this. You need to get off there, obviously, to be able to market your services with no platform involved, no middleman involved. If you want to charge significantly higher for your services and help that client understand that your services are worth something, which is something I'm going to talk about at the later end of this webinar here. You need to get off these sites, unfortunately. And that's from a Westerner perspective. From Australia, from the UK, from the US, there's an unfortunate stereotype that working with those in Asia, the subcontinent, that we're going to get a cheaper rate. It's such a really bad stigma in my country and in other Western countries. I really wish it wasn't the case, because it's such a detriment to you guys, to my fellow creatives that can do just the same things as me. It's really disrespectful, but it's unfortunately the reality of it in countries like mine. So I apologize on behalf of Australia. All right, let's keep going if we can, and we'll come back to some more questions if that's all good.
Yes, let's continue. Yeah.
Cool. Okay. All right, I'll bring my screen back up. Alrighty. So how do I know who can afford my services is the big question here. You know what your rate is, you want to charge bigger, but who the hell can afford my services? Because no one at the moment can afford more than $100. Where do I find these people? You can't, but you can make an educated guess. So how do you do that? First is business size. So if you can understand how many stores they have, how many employees do they have, how many products and services they have or sell, and how much do they sell their products or services for? If those numbers out of all those different questions that are pretty low, then you're probably going to have a client that doesn't have a problem that's worth solving for a higher ticket amount. So if they only have one store, they're a small bike repair shop in the streets of Mumbai, they're probably not going to have the money to afford and see the value in doing that. Whereas you go to a big multinational company that might be in Pune. I've worked with these companies, so don't ever tell me that there's not big companies in India or in Asia that don't and can't afford your services, because they can. That's a real sticky point. But I just know there's a lot of you guys that are designers in your country. So to find these people is going to be a rare opportunity, but they are out there. Location again. So what country are they from? Are they in an affluent area? And this is kind of a generalization, not always, but potentially. Clients in countries like Australia, where I am from, the USA, UK, Canada, France, Germany, Switzerland, and Scandinavia tend to value creative solutions more for their businesses. and are wealthier socio-economic countries for business. We are turning over potentially way more in a US dollar amount than possibly in Asia, Africa, the Eastern Europe kind of region areas, and the Middle East, potentially, depending on where you are. So if you're looking for gold mines, Australia, USA, Canada, France, they potentially have higher budgets, but not always. It depends on the client that you're looking for. Then again, you need to think about the existing touch points they already have. So do they have branding? Do they have a website? Do they currently have signage? Do they already have an app? Depending on how they look or have been executed, they may not be solving their problems well enough, and obviously could be better. But, and a big but here, guys, that's for them to say, not ever for you to tell them that their logo sucks or their website is crap or that their app is terrible to use. That's not on you to say. That's for them to tell you. And if they ever ask you, what do you think? You say, well, I always think things could always be better. It depends on if you are happy with your solution or not. If you're not, we can look at it and see how we can improve it. That's all you need to say. But if they have these things, then you know that they've executed a solution before and they may have paid for those services. So they may be in the need for something new. If it's kind of lacking, if it's a bit dated, hasn't been done in a few years, all these kind of things. So there's some little telltale signs. And one big tip here, and this is answering one of your questions here, is to be a higher valued service provider, niche please. So, or niche please, depending on where you're based. It's said in two different ways. But niching, there's 4 different types of ways to niche down, to be really specific in what it is you offer as a service provider, as a creative, as a designer, whatever you do. The first is geographic location. So you could focus on people just in Sydney, Australia. You could focus on a specific industry, a real estate agent, people that sell houses and buy houses for people and rent houses for people. You could focus on the deliverable. So only specifying your services as a website designer. You only do websites. That is all you do, and that's what you are really good at. And then you can specify your niche as a specific problem, SEO traffic. If you compiled all 4 together, you are niching down significantly. So if you were focusing on Sydney, businesses in Sydney, Australia that are real estate agents that need web design and specifically need help with their SEO traffic, you are niching really, really down to become a go-to service provider, which I think I'm getting ahead of myself here, but because why do you want to niche? You can become the go-to person. Funny that, Frank, you're way ahead of yourself. It helps you also gain referrals from those that are in their industry. So you become that go-to person and you can help others like them because they're going to have a network of people like them. You can charge a higher price for that specialization because you are that person that knows how to solve it. And you can better solve that problem because you know the answer to that problem. But before you niche, you need to know, would that niche be able to afford my rate? Are there enough businesses in that niche to make it viable? Is there possibility for repeat business in that niche? So do they need reoccurring work? Is it something like social media content? Do they need repeat social media content? Do they need a new logo every month? Probably not. So that might not be a viable area to focus on. And some exposed niche myths, which a lot of people think that you're going to get pigeonholed into just that niche. These are some things that might expose some of those biases in your head. Just because you niche doesn't mean different clients won't want to work with you or approach you. I said that I work with tech companies and Aussie businesses. I have recruitment companies from the US ask if I can help them. That's out of my niche. Or people might ask me for label design for a bottle. I don't typically do that. I do branding design. Doesn't mean that if you niche that people aren't still going to, contact you. It also doesn't mean that you have to offer that one deliverable. So if you only do website design, you could do, as I said just before, you could offer logo design. It all works part and parcel that if you can offer more, you can upsell your services to be able to charge more. And you're not locked into that niche for life. It's not a ball and chain. You can change it at any time. If you find it's not viable or you've just dried up that resource and you need to pivot away, pivot away. Don't feel like you're locked in. But how do you present your services and price with confidence? This is what I said before. How do we do with confidence? Look at all the confidence I have, Julia Andrews. Be confident that your services are worth the money and its weight in gold. Believe that they can deliver more than their value and be able to prove it. So you need to be 100% certain that what you offer is of value. You need to believe it. If you don't believe it, then why should your client? And you need to be able to prove that you can do it. So have those testimonials, have those case studies, have that work to show that you can do what it is you say you do, because otherwise you are going to lead your client to false expectations. And there are a lot of people like that you are trying to compete with, who are setting clients up for failure. But if you can show it is what you can do, fantastic, and be confident with it. The second tip is here to be able to say your price as if it's as if you're saying that the sky is blue. Hopefully that's easy for everyone to say. Or that the earth is round. I hope that there's no flat earthers here that I'm offending. But to be able to say it as clear as day like that, because we can all confidently say that those two things are fact, you might need to practice it in front of the mirror with your wife, with your spouse, to your dog, whatever it is to get you comfortable saying your price. If it's that $3,080, you need to look in the mirror and say, yes, Mr. Client, it is $3,080. That's all you need to say. If you start saying like it's yeah, look, it's for this typically it's around 3,000 and 3,080. Is that okay? How would you buy that? No. You say it's $3,080. When can we start? That's all you need to do. In other words, don't lie like this schmo from Liar Liar. You need to be able to say that with confidence, like the sky is blue or the earth is round. The third tip here is when you're starting out, and this was a tip I got from Chris Do when I started out, was that, and Chris Do's from the future, if you've ever heard of his name before, or his business, is to provide your client with an exact number. $2,239 and maybe 40 cents if you really want to go granular. Maybe not that granular, but that shows that you have a considered price. It's that price for a specific reason that you've developed, rather than a really rounded number like $2,200 or just $2,000. So that way it gives you a bit more confidence to know that you've developed this price, maybe by your internal hourly rate times by the amount of hours that you think it's going to take to do so. And then there's your number there, your pretty number there that is a bit, finessed. Whereas when you're confident with your price, provide your client with a rounded number. So once you're good with your pricing, give a rounded number. That's how I go about it. And just state the number. Don't start justifying why it is that price. Just say that's the number. That's the price. That's it. It's $2,500. When can we proceed? So think about it this way. And I said this. I think I touched on this before. If I'm not confident in my services or price, why should my client be? It's the same with if you wanted to put out something to sell, a product. You wanted to sell an iPhone to someone. If you're confident that someone needs to buy this or is going to benefit in their life, why would someone trust you that that's a phone for them? Same deal here with your service. Right, Q&A part, Trey.
All right, guys, we are short on time as well, so we'll take few more questions before we end the session.
We need to launch through. I'll find two quick questions. Here we go. Where can we find freelancing work? Is it good to make clients? Okay, is it good to make clients from Instagram? If so, how can we know they are genuine? Instagram's a funny one. Typically, they're not going to be big businesses that are looking for your services unless they are a marketing manager or someone that is looking for your particular services on behalf of their boss. It's a bit of a harder one. LinkedIn tends to be now the one that you are connecting more with those that are owner operators, because it's their personal profile that you're engaging with. So if you put out content there, use kind of relevant hashtags. I've had this in the last few months. A lot of people contacted me looking for work as a result of that, business owners around the world, which is great. So if you have a good presence, you make good content that is looking like it's something that's solving their problem, you know how to solve their problem, that's a great way to do it. Knowing whether or not they're genuine is a bit of a vetting process. Get them on a call if you can and ask as many questions as possible to see if they're genuine and interested, and throw out your price early if you can to vet that person out and weed, you know, their budget out. And that's something I'm going to cover soon. Hey, how do you know you're solving a huge problem? Okay. How do you know you're solving a huge problem as a designer rather than a problem that just fits your budget? I'm going to talk about this next. So this is a good segue, I think, into it. I'll take one quick last question though, but I'm going to come back obviously to that question. Starting brand new with respect to finding clients outside of freelancers. What's the best way to get started and attract high ticket clients? Creating that presence, creating a kind of an aura around yourself. That's the last question here. Afreen is asked. So if you're starting out new away from Fiverr and all those kind of freelancing platforms, have an established presence, be creating content, showing up every day if you can on social media can help. But also look for people. Don't just let people come to you. Be proactive and engage with people that you find interesting, that are putting out interesting content, and just be genuinely wanting to create interactions and play a longer game rather than a short-term sales thing. So don't just connect with someone, send them a DM and say, hey, by the way, do you need a logo design? That's not the way to do this. Play a longer game with this, understand who they are, what their needs are, how their business is doing, how's it going during COVID-19 at the moment. It's a relatable issue we're all going through. Start having a dialogue with somebody and they'll check out your profile as a result of that, be it in Instagram or LinkedIn. I guarantee you, if they need your services, they'll holler back to you and say, hey, can you help me out? It takes a long time. I know it took me 12 months to get some people in my inbox to say, can you help me? And I'd been, before that, writing in a wave of referrals. The other point to it is referrals. Asking people in your network, friends, family, just exhaust that resource. If you can, if you have it available to you, exhaust that resource. All right, let's kick back in if we can.
All right.
All right, there we go. All right, I'm going to take a quick water. All right, so the main event here is how do I deal with pushback from clients about my price? So negotiating with your clients. So first, let's make sure you don't get in this situation. To do this, to avoid any pushback you're going to get from clients, and this was a question that I think I might have answered slightly, was asking for things like a budget up front. And if you can't get a budget from your client to be estimated, start at a high ballpark range. So give them a price range. Start at like something exorbitant, like $20,000 and go, are you comfortable with that? They say, no. You go, okay, well, maybe 10 to 15. They go, nah. You say, okay, well, 7 to 10. They go, yeah, getting closer. So, right there when they say, yeah, you know that you're at the top end of their budget there that they could spend, but they don't really want to. You go, oh, 5 to 7. Yeah, that's really getting closer. Is it still comfortable with you? No, not. It's still probably more than we want to spend. That's your middle range. Then you go, okay, what about 2 to 3,000? And they go, yeah, that sounds good to us. That's your low end. So you could present them with 3 prices, tiered, and then scale up the amount of inclusions of the scope between those 3 prices. See which they pick. If they want to go for the real money deal up at 10 grand, they might go for it. Whatever the price range is there, have a price bracket. If the price comes in too low at that bracket, they aren't your client. Just end the conversation there and say, look, I think we're in 2 different ballparks here. Don't waste your time, and refer them on to something like Fiverr. But you want to not walk away from a conversation or do a proposal without knowing that price range first, of knowing that they are going to be comfortable with that price, so that they're not going to be given sticker shock when they see your price on that proposal and they go, oh my God, no way in hell, I'm not going to answer this person because I'm so embarrassed that I can't afford their services. That's what happens. That's why people ghost you. So get to know if they are comfortable with your price first. The second thing is to realize that business is a negotiation. And negotiations mean that a client can push back on price. That's okay. It's whether or not you want to play ball and come down. But what I would say is never lower your price for the same amount of deliverables. Change the scope of work, which is the 4th point. I've mucked those points up. So change the scope, reduce the scope. So if it's a website, a logo, and a business card, take one off until you get to a price that they're comfortable with. And then maybe they can do it in the future if they want to. Don't also lower your rate for promised future work. And they say, oh, we've got all these projects we could help you do if you lower your rate now. And it's like, no, no, no. I'd like that in writing in a contract that you have some more projects that we can sign on now, or you can do this rate now and maybe over time I can reduce my rate for that future work. Don't work on false promises. And add more value in other ways if need be. More communication, more time with your customer or your client. Or add bonus little freebies. I add animated logos into my branding as little, unexpected little additions that they, delight with. And thirdly, there are two common pushback scenarios that you guys are probably going to get, because I've had them and I've experienced other people telling me that they've had it too. The first one is that you are too expensive. We only need a logo, or we only need a single page website, or we only need this one illustration, not a whole suite of illustrations, whatever it is. You say back to them, can I ask you, Mr. Client, why do you want a logo? And you keep asking why questions until you get what the problem is. The problem in this scenario is that we want to attract more customers to our restaurant. You say, okay, fine. You then ask a how question, and you keep asking how questions until you get to the next result. So in this scenario here is, how many more customers do you need more than what you currently have? They give you the goal here, and they say 20 more than the 40 we are already getting each day, and we're open for 5 days a week. So you know what the goal post here is that they're trying to achieve as a result of creating a logo. And then you ask as well the what question, and you keep asking what questions until you get to the next stage. And this scenario is, what is one customer or table worth to your business? And they give you the measure for success. They tell you that $50 per customer or table is what it's worth to increase our sales here. So you do a quick bit of maths in this scenario. It won't always work like this, but in this particular kind of situation, they want 20 more customers. You times that by $50 per customer or table. That's an additional $1,000 per night. You times that by 5 nights that they're open per week. That's an additional $5,000 a week. You times that by 40 weeks to be really goddamn generous. Rather than 52 weeks, you give them 40 weeks, and you tell them that that's going to generate them an extra $200,000 per year in added revenue. So you come back to them and say, well, Mr. Client, if you believe, not you as in you the designer, if you believe, Mr. Client, that a new logo is going to help you bring in $200,000 worth of new business, like you've just told me here, is my $2,000 rate for that logo really not worth that investment? Because 1 week alone would 2.5 times their money. So that's what the solution and the value is worth to them if they execute on working with you. So you put that, this is kind of value-based pricing, guys. It's a little different because you're attributing their value to what it is your rate is, rather than setting a rate based on what the value that they're going to get. So you're comparing here the two to help them see the value in what they're going to get out of it. So if you did it in just 1 week, or if you got them $100,000 for $2,000, that's still an ungodly amount of return for them on their money. So if they don't see it, then look, if all prices a potential client is focused on, you need to start having a business conversation with your clients who don't at first see that value of the solution they desire. And if there's no financial goal to it, then either move on or turn it to an emotional conversation, which is the next scenario. Scenario 2 is, you're more expensive than other designers who are cheaper. That's pretty common. So you say, oh, I'm nice. Okay. So you've reached out to a few other designers then. So you just want to ask if they're shopping around, if they've contacted other designers actually, or they're just making up numbers here. They say, yeah, look, just a couple of others, and they were quite a bit cheaper than you. So you know at this point they're price shopping. They're shopping around to get the best deal here for them. You say, okay, I see. Do you mind if I ask you what do you happen to like about their work any better? And you let them compare their options. You don't let them ask you to justify why you're better. You let them do that talking. And they say, well, look, it's not better, but they are clearly cheaper than what you're quoting your price at. So at this stage, you might be equal in quality, and that's okay. You're still at a price conversation here. So you still want to flip this. And you say, okay, fair enough. And would you say that you're more confident in them? This turns it to a price conversation, turns it from a price conversation to an emotive conversation. And they say, well, I guess cheaper doesn't give us any greater level of confidence. And this is where that client could realize that cheaper may not be better. So you say, really, really genuinely, I'll level with you here, Mr. Client. If you're not 100% confident I can help you solve your problem, then I really wouldn't feel comfortable taking your money, because I know this just causes harbored resentment down the track, which isn't great for any business relationship. So if you are really annoyed that you spent all this money and you're not confident that I'm going to deliver here, it's always going to cause tension down the track. But I know I can help you and have the experience of helping others like you. And in this case, if you do have that experience, but are you confident in working with me? That's all the question you need to ask. That's one big, long question, but that's the question you ask. Because there's no need to convince them. I've done in red here. There's no need to con them that you are the better choice. Let them understand that you are their least risky option here. Because if price is their differentiator, change the conversation away from price to let them compare their options and convince you that you're their ideal choice to be the better value option. And don't badmouth fellow creatives. In that conversation, if someone else is cheaper and you know that person, don't badmouth them. It makes you look really, really bad. So we covered all these things: what you need to charge as a designer, how to charge more than $100 for your services, understanding who can afford your services, how to present your price with confidence, negotiate your client pushback over your price. I want to leave you with 4 things to remember here, guys. First is that every person that contacts you isn't going to be your client. They're not a client until they've paid that deposit or an upfront payment. The second is that business happens when there is an equal or greater exchange of value. So you need to ensure that what you offer and or you deliver has greater value than the price it costs, or even just equal value for your client to solve their problem. So if you are offering something that is an emotional thing that's to get them to feel prideful about their logo to put on their shirt, you need to make sure that that is an equal exchange, that they're happy to part with that money. Or if it's that monetary value that they're going to gain $200,000 more in just that 1 year alone, is that not worth it? So you need to make sure what the goalpost is here. The third point is, if a client could have done it themselves, they wouldn't be calling you if they are calling you in the first place, or contacting you in whatever shape, form, which means that if your price is their barrier, especially if it's at a reasonable market rate, then the solution just isn't important to them. And the last point is that if you are helping other businesses, you are solving a business problem, not just a creative, whimsical, bit of art. You need to understand the value of what your service is compared to the value of the solution for their business over time, not just now, but over time, because it might not happen immediately. You can't guarantee long-term success, but you know that that's where it could go based on other industry examples and proof of that concept. So thank you very much, guys. Good luck here. And again, they're my handles that you can find on Instagram. I do want to leave you lastly with this free ebook I have. It says starting an Aussie design business in 8 hours, but it can apply to anyone around the world. There's just a couple of things in there that are quite specifically for Australians when setting up a business. But I'm going to put a little call to action here of how, actually, I'm just going to put it in the chat. How about that? Here's the web address in the chat, rather than a call to action. And you can subscribe to my newsletter to be able to get that PDF immediately. It's just a free ebook there for you guys. And you can sign up to my newsletter, which I drop some more little value bombs like this every month. So thank you very much. And let's keep going with the last part of Q&A before I need to jet off.
All right, Frank, that was quite an insightful and value-packed session, and I'm sure all of the live audience would agree to that. So we have already exceeded our time. Let's take 2-3 more questions, and then we'll wrap up the entire session.
Okay, too easy. Okay, website doesn't always have to. I'm just going to try and find a good question kind of here. How to pitch a client on Instagram. That's just come in from Kalyani. Don't pitch in Instagram. Don't do it. Just create a relationship with that person. Say, how are you going? How's your business? I really love your product. I really love your service. I really love your content, all these kind of things. And then start following along their content over time. Build that rapport. You don't want to come across as desperate that you're there for work. You just want to show that you're genuinely interested in it. It might take 6 months, I've got to say, but that long-term engagement there may pay off to something. They may not want your services. You can't expect them to want your services, and you can't tell them that, you know, you'd love to work with them unless they're looking to partner, or that you see an opportunity, maybe their content or their stories, and you go, I could really help them. I really love what you're putting up here. Is there something I can help you with to elevate this even more and be a part of this? Those kind of things is the best way to go about Instagram. Same with LinkedIn too. I'm not going to answer any questions about where to find freelance work. It doesn't work like that on freelance sites. It's a different ball game than finding high value clients. You need to find them yourself, or they need to find you. There's one more here. I've started to work with friends and relatives. In order to work with real clients, I'll need to have my own company for invoicing. Yes, if you want to work with clients, you need to invoice people professionally. You could do it via PayPal. You could do it via all these different sites like Anco or Hello Bonsai that have invoicing templates that you can create. You could create it in Adobe InDesign or even Microsoft Word or Google Docs and send that. As long as it has their details, your bank will pay details, the amount that they're required to pay, the date they're required to pay. It needs to be just as simple as that. If you charge GST, it needs to say tax invoice. If you don't charge GST or VAT or any kind of extra tax, it just needs to say invoice. But do that, it makes it more professional. You have a record of that sale, and you can use it for your accountant. Your accountant's going to love you if you have invoices. And even your local tax authority in your country is going to love that too if you get audited. Let's go one last question. If the overall project contains multiple different deliverables, do you price each one separately? Okay, this is a good one here quickly. If you tier your deliverables into 3 different sort of tiers of price attributed to it, don't itemize the list of inclusions of what they each cost, because what will happen is a client will just cross them off, and then you're left with a really hodgepodge end result of price that you didn't want to do it. You just give a total price for what the inclusion is. That applies if it's just a one-tier option as well. That's exactly the same advice. I'm not too sure why I broke that into 2 different things. But yeah, don't itemize your price amounts. Tier in either different amounts with different inclusions or more inclusions. The higher it goes up in price, or make it a staggered stage process where, okay, stage 1 is a branding engagement. That's $2,000. And then the next stage after you're happy with that is a website. That's another $2,000 or $3,000. And then you've got signage. That's the 3rd stage. And that's a whole, like each one of these is a different contract, a different invoice, and even separate invoices if you want to, manage them that way as well for payment cadence. So I'm going to leave it with that, guys. I need to pick up my son from daycare. Thank you so much for letting me share this time with you and sharing some of the bits that I've learned of starting my own business. It's really, really great. I'd love to connect with you on G'day Design Life on Instagram, and hope to see you soon.
All right. Thank you so much, Frank, for joining us once again and for such an insightful session. Guys, this is not very tense. We have a lot more events lined up for the coming days. The next event is, you can find all our upcoming events on our events page. We'll drop the link of the event page in the chat section. To stay updated with, all these events, you can subscribe to our events newsletter. To watch all these events and the previous events that you missed attending, you can go to our YouTube channel and you can watch all the sessions there. And all the designers and artists who are listening to this and wish to be a part of the creative community, you can visit designhill.com and sign up there. Also, last but not the least, we have also recently launched a DIY creative tool called Designhill Studio, which will empower everyone across the world to unleash their creative talent within themselves. So you can create, social media graphic design or any kind of design template from there. So check that out as well. On that note, I would like to say bye to everyone who joined here today. Thank you so much once again for joining us. I hope you enjoyed the session. Stay safe and take care, everyone. Bye-bye.
I've always been creative and always been an artist. As a young girl, I used to paint rocks and I used to sell them for a quarter on the street. And I just fell in love with it. It just grew into a passion of mine. I started looking on the web and I came across Designhill, and they had a design contest to design a logo, and I entered it and I won. And I was like, oh, this is really great. I can pick and choose what type of logos or design projects I want to work on. And it allows me to be creative, keep my hands, with my tools and working. So it's kind of nice. It's really easy to use. You can scroll through the projects and there's sections that you could go by. It's really easy. There's a few clients who have come back to use the one-on-one projects. There's one client in particular, she owns a vintage shop, and I designed her logo, and she came back. She needed a design for a flyer, and she really liked the illustrations that I did for her, so she came back a couple of times with projects. I would recommend it, especially if you're a designer that's starting out and you want to learn from other designers, seasoned designers. It's a place to keep in the game and keep using your tools. It makes me feel great, and it kind of confirms that I should be doing this. And I love to see logos that I've designed out, and proud of that. And I think that the clients are so happy that their logo represents what they do and makes them look good. It's a collaboration. It's good for me, and it's definitely good for them.